So, Professor Wright, I'm thinking about Revelation, and one of the things that I know from your work is that eschatology is a big deal, that new creation is the goal, it's heading somewhere, the whole project is going somewhere, and that's our hope. I think of Surprise by Hope, of course, and tons of other places. And so I'm wondering if you would share with our listeners what is at stake. Like, what is at stake when we get the book of Revelation wrong? Like, what do we actually get wrong a lot of the time? And then what's the power of the book if we actually read it through a lens that really takes the idea of new creation seriously and our vocation as followers of the Lamb seriously as well? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's difficult to say because there are many, many different modern readings of Revelation. I think, though, particularly within the dispensational tradition, which comes out of 19th century Britain and Ireland and crossed the Atlantic and has now become a major thing in North America and in satellites of North America, but in a way that hasn't really infected much of the rest of the Christian world, that is the dispensational reading, which sees the whole thing of the millennium as where the book is really going and all of that. And I want to say what we desperately need is to read Revelation as what it is, which is first century Judeo-Christian literature. It's very much in the Jewish tradition of writing in vision language, in dream language, using what are to our minds very strange apocalyptic symbols, but which would be easily recognized and decoded in the world of the first century. So that, for instance, when you get this picture in chapter 5 of the lion who is also the lamb, and this lamb has the sword coming out of his mouth and so on. This is a collage of biblical imagery. The sword in the mouth, for instance, comes from Psalm 2 particularly, and the writer is pulling together biblical imagery into this strange, lurid world of images, and it isn't giving you an advance photographic reproduction of what's going to happen either throughout church history or at one point at the end of church history or anything like that. It's a way of saying in these graphic images, this is where we now are. The Lamb is on the throne. He has won the victory. That means that new creation is assured, and it means that you, if you follow the Lamb, will be called to suffer in some ways because that's how his kingdom makes its way in the world. It's about the already of the kingdom and also the not yet of the kingdom, and about how we have to be in that interval. But all the way through, it's looking ahead to the new creation, which is not about saved souls going up to heaven, either in a rapture or when they die or any other time. It's about the new Jerusalem coming down from heaven to earth. The real danger in the ways we've read Revelation in recent centuries is that we collapse it into a sort of Gnosticism, which is about escaping from this earth and going to heaven, and the whole point of Revelation is about heaven coming to earth in Jesus to win the victory over the dark powers, and then to implement that victory by swallowing up death forever, so that then there will be the new creation in which there will be no more tears. That itself is a very, very powerful symbol.
I personally love his point about a Jewish person following Jesus in the Mediterranean during the first century gets this letter, and the images aren't crazy. The images aren't unrecognizable. I mean, I'm going to use this example over and over again, but it's no different than a political cartoon oftentimes. It's no different than here's an image and here's what it's doing. And if you can understand the image in its context, it affects you, it changes you, and it empowers you to lean into the vision that the image evokes. And in our situation, the image of new creation, the image of God's recreating of the world is the central image that we find ourselves yearning for because of the accomplishment in the book of Revelation specifically of the Lamb who was slain, who is victorious over all the gods, over all the powers, over all evil, over the Roman Empire itself, even though it was Rome's own execution machine that killed Jesus. So hopefully this is just a big picture introduction now to the kind of big cosmic framework I use when I think about eschatology, when I think about the end. And of course, we're going to go into more detail, but I wanted to introduce you to one of my biggest influences, N.T. Wright, on this, because it's going to be a major thing that we keep coming back to. Is the rapture biblical? It seems like when Jesus prays, he doesn't pray, your kingdom come on heaven or in heaven as it is on earth. Like he's always moving towards the earth. Your kingdom come on earth as in heaven. The movement of God is always towards humanity, towards the earth, not away from it. And so we are going to wrestle with the ramifications of that big cosmic vision, that God isn't only reconciling humans so that souls go to heaven when they die, but God is saving the cosmos through the power of Jesus' life, death, resurrection, and now ascension and lordship over the whole thing.